We propose as collaboration of General Secretariat of all South Sudanese political parties to comprehend the challenges and to strategically navigate against the tsunami tiger waves of the changing context and demand in our endeavor to realize our goal. This is a goal of peace, harmony, and inclusive prosperity for all South Sudanese. Our legitimacy as political party, our point of departure, of course, is the historic December 31st, 2013 statement that was signed by all the political parties of South Sudan on the recent aborted coup d'etat in the country. Soon after that, the initiative from the SPLM General Secretariat and patriotic response by our colleagues in sisterly South Sudanese political parties, we unwaveringly agreed to translate the historic statement into envisioned programs and an institutionalized process in order to attain the goal of the historic statement. Though it was a spontaneous response at the time, we decided upon ourselves to define our legitimacy and mandate. We are the technocrats, political cadres of our South Sudanese political parties with shared vision of peaceful and prosperous Republic of South Sudan. For our achievements, we initiated contacts with the Crisis Management Committee, the Government Crisis Management Committee, in response to Comrade His Excellency President Salva Kiir, directives in Republican Order number 22-2013. We lobbied for restructuring and institutional reframing of the Crisis Management Committee, now called National Crisis Management Committee, headed by able Comrade Waniga, the Vice President of the Republic of South Sudan. We appreciated the positive development and recognition of the committee to our endeavor. Through the National Crisis Management Committee support, we have engaged in the process of contributing into translating the historic statement that was signed in 31st December and Republican Order into achievable goals. In that, we have engaged our political parties, the media, and conducted a rally on January 21st, 2014 via the South Sudan Legislative Assembly, and ending with delivering a message to the United Mission in South Sudan, in Juba, UNMISS. We have sensitized the public all over South Sudan and in the diaspora to engage in similar processes. We are hourly and daily in consultative fora to seek solutions. Thanks to facilities at the Political Parties Leadership Forum, PPLF, funded by USAID and the International Republican Institute, IRI, South Sudan program. Our next programs, we have a series of programs that we have outlined and discussed together as political parties, and we would like to share with you. We'd also encourage later on as the discussions go on to also hear more from you to help us broaden the scope. In our next symposium, we shall invite the National Crisis Management Committee and South Sudanese researchers and opinion leaders to collaboratively learn from each other and to dialogue on the way forward to charter the road towards finding the solutions to the negative impact of the December 15th, 2013 failed coup. We shall seek also ways to prevent such anomaly in future modern and democratic Republic of South Sudan. We plan to engage faith-based leadership and congregation in seeking solutions. We shall engage the media, youth, the women, the students, the business community, the urban and rural population, and the traditional authority leaders to rise to the expectations in finding amicable solutions. It is our hope that able members of South Sudan, regional and international communities shall grant us their wisdom and material support to perfect our abilities and methods to meet the expectations. Some of the potential challenges in our deliberations that we found and deliberated on include We are aware of the following challenges. Fraternal partners' dismay and their zeal is chartered in helping South Sudan to rise on its feet since the liberation time, and our resolute to independence and prosperity. Our ability to demonstrate willingness to overcome the obstacles. We are aware of the challenges upon our elected leadership to bring tranquility using all the lawful means to dissuade outlaws in pushing the country into collapse with devastating consequences similar to Somalia, Central African Republic, and Libya. B, give hope to the people of South Sudan that a speedy end to the crisis is within our collective reach. C, that the government of South Sudan is committed to peaceful solution to the problem. And D, that the Constitution is protected by law and that every citizen is effectively sensitized to defend the Constitution in accordance to Article 14, Article 4, clauses 1 to 4 of the Transitional Constitution of 2011. 4, we are conscious of the challenges upon the December 15, 2013 coup plotters. They have incited rural communities and underage to add another crime of raiding towns for money, looting shops and household utensils. December 15, 2013 coup plotters have also armed civilian population morally and physically with guns and ammunitions to commit atrocities in urban areas in a madness attempt to bring democracy through forceful means to change leadership. That the December 15th, 2013 coup plotters do not have full control on mobilized civilians as criminals who are their allies in pursuit to legitimate power. 5, we are aware of the misguiding propaganda that could affect the local, national, regional, and international community due to illicit propaganda. 6, we are aware of the disappointment and suffering of the victims of December 15th, 2013 that might blur our vision from envisioning the solutions. This should not allow a quick fix that could land South Sudan in an endless crisis. 7, we are aware that the endeavor of the National Constitutional Review process is vital so that we are able to define the system of governance and legislate on the legal process that defines South Sudan mission. In conclusion, dear compatriots and distinguished guests, in God we trust. We appeal to our tentative listening and to your tentative listening and your wisdom in support of our efficacy and commitment to work in collaboration. South-South dialogue. Stated shortly before the signing of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, successful Juba Peace Agreement with Comrade late Paulino Matip and other armed and political forces followed it. We, the political parties, led by the icon of peace and harmony, His Excellency Comrade President Salva Kiir, to manage the challenges of the Comprehensive Peace Agreement implementation and the very difficult circumstances of competitive nature of 2010 general elections, President Kiir acquired absolute majority, again with 98.82% credible results of the referendum. It showed that South Sudanese would collaboratively agree for a common cause. South Sudanese Joshua took us to the harbor of founding the Republic of South Sudan on January 9, 2011. The referendum to choose independence was a common cause irrespective of our cultural diversity and political spectrum. We rallied to support the credible and orderly results of October 31st, 2013, popular referendum of Abiy 9 Ngok Dinka in favor of joining the Republic of South Sudan. Again, the December 31st, 2013 historic statement is another milestone, giving us hope as political parties that we could rally behind the defense of our constitution and giving us hope and a democratically elected government. Here we're united behind the theme, one nation and one united people of South Sudan. Now I would allow to call the Master of Ceremony to continue with the rest of the program. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Commander Susan. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Master of Ceremony. Brothers and sisters, all protocols observed. I'm required to come and talk today on the role of South Sudan political parties in solving the current political crisis within the framework of IPGAT initiative. Yes, one thing to the organizers. Yeah, Jama, those days when we were one country with the Sudan, this was the time when we used to refer to ourselves as South Sudan. At present, we are independent. These are political parties. Because there is no South Sudan again, you don't have a political party outside South Sudan. Otherwise, if it is a foreign political party, it will have no function here. So you should refer to yourself all the time as the political parties. Republic of South Sudan, political parties, not South Sudan political parties, because there is nowhere else we will be referring to ourselves like that. Yes, I'm required to brief, actually, all of you on the cessation of hostilities and on the agreement on the status of detainees in South Sudan. Ultimately, to start with this, His Excellency the President set up a delegation of the government of the Republic of South Sudan to go and negotiate with the rebels. The decree was issued on the 1st of January, and we were supposed to leave the same day to Addis, but unfortunately there was no booking made, so we had to go the other day. What is important is that we started negotiations, and the negotiations started through shuttling by the envoys, shuttling between us and the rebels, and at the end we came together under one shade and on one table, and we started negotiating. The first thing that you need to know here is that this group of rebels, or how did this rebellion start? All of us here in Juba know how it started on the 15th of December, when an attempted coup took place here in Juba. It was a coup d'etat which failed, and as a result, the leader of the coup decided to sneak out of Juba together with Taban Dengai, and the rest could not make it, so they were apprehended. Now, after moving out of Juba, the leader of the coup decided to tribalize his efforts. He decided to tribalize his attempted coup and call it a fight between the Nuer and the Dinka. This was in order to mobilize and win the sympathy of his tribesmen, the Nuer. And he succeeded it. He did like what he did in 91. For those of us who have been following in 91, they know exactly what Riek Machar did in 91. And after failing to take over the government in Juba by midday, as he stated, because he had stated that in that morning of the 16th, he declared that by 12 he will take over Juba. Unfortunately, that did not happen, so he left Juba and started to campaign and mobilize the Nuer, and as a result, he succeeded to mobilize the Nuer because he had declared his war against Dinka. These tribal sentiments and tribal mentality is what brought us all these crises in which we are today. Yes, after having succeeded to mobilize his people, and on realizing that that trend will not help him, he abandoned that after having made sure that he has properly mobilized the Nuer. Now the White Army started to move in, and all that happened. Then he dropped the idea of the tribal fight and then called what he has done a rebellion. So he became a rebel leader thereafter. The rebel leader decided to give name to his rebellion. He called it SPLM, SPLA in opposition. SPLM, SPLA in opposition. He did not know that after the agreement, the SPLM departed with the A. The army became a national army, and the SPLM became a political party which has nothing to do with the army. Not that only, but in the opening session, the leader of the rebel group to the negotiations, Taban Dengai, declared that this was not anything other than a conflict within the party, a conflict within the SPLM. So our question was, okay, if that was a conflict within the SPLM, then what brought in the SPLA? Because the SPLM has its own mechanisms of addressing issues. So the fact that you have decided to involve the army does not make it an SPLM issue again. Anyway, that was the beginning of our talks. And with all this, we continue to talk on so many fronts. We discussed so many issues until we came up with this document called the Cessation of Hostilities. Cessation of Hostilities is a document which was signed between the government of the Republic of South Sudan and the SPLM, SPLA in opposition. The main objective of this document is to stop this killing, stop this bloodshed, stop this looting, stop this displacement, and stop all these atrocities being committed against our people. The objective was to bring peace, create a conducive atmosphere whereby we can sit now and question our brothers and sisters who decided to undermine our constitutional process, our brothers and sisters who wanted to take over or overthrow a democratically elected government by force. Down to a rebellion, we went to Addis, we negotiated the cessation of hostilities. I hope that most of you, that you got the two agreements which we signed in Addis. I will not be in a position to march you through the whole document because my time will not allow me. But it starts with a preamble and then the declaration of cessation of hostilities. That is stopping fighting between the two parties. The two parties committed themselves to bring peace to South Sudan. In fact, as a government delegation, we went from here fully authorized by the government, by the president, that we go and come back with peace. And we came back with peace. We signed the cessation of hostilities so that we stop fighting, so that we create a conducive atmosphere for us, so that we sit thereafter and begin to question the rebels as to the root causes of their problem. Because as a government and as a party, it is not clear to us up to now what are these people after. They are unable to differentiate between a party dispute, which has its own mechanisms for addressing it, and an attempt to overthrow a democratically elected government. These are two separate institutions, and the SPLM has its own mechanisms. If at all the dispute was on the SPLM has its own mechanisms of addressing all these issues. Not that only, but the SPLM was to hold its national convention in March. And if at all you want to be the president of the party or the chairman of the party, that is open to you. This is democracy. And if you have lost, respect democracy also. There is no way one would force others to follow his line, and if he is not followed, then he kills people. Anyway, we signed the cessation of hostilities, and in number 2, the cessation of hostilities talks about cessation of hostile propaganda. We agreed not to use harsh words, not to be hostile in the media, so that we create a conducive atmosphere. We also agreed on the protection of the civil population, because the civil population is the victim of this situation. So we agreed that, yes, the civil population must be protected, so that they are not killed, so that they are not harassed. All these atrocities are not committed against them. After all, if it is a political struggle at the top, why victimize these people? And who is that person who would rule without these people who are being killed now? We were surprised that it was said, according to the reports of the rebels, they say it was a mere dispute or a mutiny within the Republican Guards. Okay, if it was within the Republican Guards here in Juba, what took it just to general headquarters here? Because they are not also Republican Guards. Leave the fact that we can ask so many questions. What took it to Bor? What took it to Malakal? What took it to Bantiu and so forth? Are all these soldiers who are killing people all over, are they Republican Guards? Ultimately, no. They are not Republican Guards. So we agreed that we protect the civil population so that we stop killing them. Our people have suffered a great deal during the war. They have lost, and we don't want to kill the few who are left. The few who survive should be used for development. So we signed the protection of the civil population so that they are not killed again. We also signed, in number 4, we also talked about the humanitarian access. Set up corridors so that humanitarian services can reach the people across the line. Because after all, even though we are fighting, we are one. And the people, whether they are behind the lines of the government or behind the lines of the rebels, they are all South Sudanese. And for that matter, we agreed that there should be humanitarian access by opening up corridors so that humanitarian services can reach the people across the board. We also agreed to set up a monitoring and verification mechanism. Ultimately, with the signing of the cessation of hostilities, it is not enough that you sign it and stop there. You need to set up a mechanism that will monitor and verify whatever violations that may take place. Monitor conformity and verify violations. And here we agreed to set up a joint technical committee. This joint technical JTC is supposed to sit and come up with the monitoring and verification teams and come up with a monitoring and verification mechanism. Work out the rules and so forth for this body that will monitor the agreement, that will monitor the implementation of the agreement. Unfortunately, until we sign this document, we have not agreed. The IGAD did not come up with the mechanism for monitoring. So, to the rebels, that was a blessing in disguise, because they continued from there to fight and to attack our forces, and they continued to kill the civil population, because there is no mechanism set up by the envoys. This is a defect in this document, and it should be expedited so that a monitoring mechanism is put in place. We also talked about the composition of the MVT, that is the monitoring and verification teams, and the composition comprises of the IGAD, the Friends of IGAD, the Troika, the civil society. Civil society organizations, which include youth, the women, and the community leaders, including the church-based organizations. This body is supposed. These are the bodies supposed to monitor the implementation or conformity with the agreement at the grassroots level. All these committees are not set up. So when whoever complains now, in the first place, does not there is nowhere where you present your complaint. And if you take it to the IGAD now, to the envoys have no mechanism for verifying the complaint. And the process continues. So from here, I'm calling also upon the envoys to expedite this process so that we set up a mechanism. On this, also we agreed on the positions of the forces. On the positions of the forces, we agreed that the JTC, that the parties should declare the areas where their forces are. And then the JTC receives this declaration, and the MVTs verify the correctness of these reports on the ground. After verification, you certify them, and then you verify and monitor thereafter. This was one agreement. The other point on the status of forces is that we agreed that we gradually withdraw our forces from the theater of operations. You withdraw your forces, you withdraw your allies, you withdraw your other armed groups that are with you from the theater of operations. And this also cannot be done without a monitoring mechanism. So we are still waiting for the monitoring mechanism, and this is where we will determine what constitutes a theater of operations. So that is on the, and the other points are issues of amendment, dispute resolution mechanism, and it was supposed to, it came into force 24 hours after signature. That is, it was signed at about 9 p.m. and so on the 23rd, so it came into effect at about 9 p.m. on the 24th of December, of January, I mean. That is about the agreement on cessation of hostilities. The other part, the other issue, which is controversial and people have intentionally decided to misread it. I say people have intentionally decided to misread it because they say this agreement provided for the release of the detainees. And for that matter, they ask all the time, when are you releasing the detainees? There is a very important provision which I need to read. And that is, after the preamble, it says, now therefore the parties agree as follows. 1. IGAD and IGAD partners commitment. IGAD and IGAD partners commitment. 1. The parties recognize, as per the communique of the 23rd Extraordinary Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the 27th December 2013, on the situation in South Sudan, that IGAD and the partners of IGAD are firmly committed to undertake every effort to expedite the release of the detainees. It is very clear. We are encouraging the IGAD, members of IGAD and IGAD partners, on their firm commitment to undertake every effort to expedite the release of the detainees. They, to follow up and expedite, follow up the release of the detainees. This is what we are telling them. We are not saying we are releasing them. In this document, we have quoted the IGAD communique of the 27th December. The IGAD communique talks of that we expedite the release of the detainees in accordance with the Constitution and the laws of the Republic of South Sudan. And this is what has been quoted here. Now, where do we get this question of when are we releasing the detainees? We will